Do you want to smite your foes with your bare fists? Turning your knuckles into conduits of divine judgment? Have you ever wanted to smite heretics with a roundhouse kick to the face and then dance around the battlefield to inspire your friends? Well then this is the build for you. That's so dumb. Hey guys, it's Wonders and I'm back with yet another build video for you today. So if you haven't looked at the new Divine Smite, there is one thing they added, and they also added this to all of the other Smite spells as well, and that is the fact that we can now Divine Smite with unarmed strikes. Now that sounds super cool and awesome, but unfortunately there isn't as much synergy with unarmed strikes and smites as you would hope there would be. First of all, since all the new Smite spells now require your bonus action to be able to use them, including Divine Smite, a multi-class with a monk wouldn't work out too well because Flurry of Blows is one of the main ways monks do damage. Not only that, but to multi-class into a monk and a paladin, you would need 13 wisdom, 13 charisma, and 13 strength, which is a lot of different stats. And we're actually not going to be going into monk at all, but we're still going to have quite an annoying stat spread, but it's not as bad as you think. And that is because instead of going with monk, we're going to be going with the College of Dance Bard. The College of Dance Bard is great because it is a charisma caster, and it's a full caster, being a bard. So our smite spell slot level progression will not only be keeping up, it'll be better than a straight class paladin, but the new Dance Bard allows us to use unarmed strikes in unique ways, and it allows us to have a little bit of the monk flavor, but not having to worry about having a 13 in wisdom. So a couple rules of this build, because this is a build where I'm specifically restricting myself to go for a specific character concept. So at no point in this build can I use any weapons. I can only use unarmed strikes. Up until going into the Dance Bard subclass, I am going to be wearing armor and using a shield, but as soon as I get the Dance Bard subclass, I'm going to be unarmored, but that's okay because the Dance Bard will give us a feature that'll make our armor class still pretty good. Besides that, I can use any spell as long as it works with unarmed strikes. So with that out of the way, let me explain the build. Hello, fellow dice goblins. Are your dice bags overflowing? Is your collection starting to resemble a dragon's hoard? Fear not, because today I have something special to add to your glittering stash. Let me introduce you to Dice Goblin, the ultimate haven for all you dice addicts out there. Whether you're a seasoned collector or just starting to embrace your inner goblin, they've got a fantastic range of colors and styles to match every character and campaign. They even have these cute little goblin logos on almost every dice set, because why not embrace our goblin nature, right? Now, if you're looking for something to really impress during your next game night, check out the Ninja dice set. These beauties are darker than a goblin's secret stash and come with a crimson sparkle that says, "I'm here to roll high and look fabulous." Plus, those blood red numbers, perfect for keeping your rolls as hidden as a shadow monk casting darkness. And the best part, with Dice Goblin's speedy same-day dispatch, you won't have to wait long to add these to your hoard. They even offer free shipping and no fuss returns, making it easier than ever to justify your Dice Goblin status. So if you're ready to embrace your inner dice goblin, check out the link below to grab your own bag of these fabulous dice. And remember, there's no such thing as too many dice, only too few bags to carry them in. When you click my link, I will get a little bit of commission for every purchase. I'm gonna do background, species, and ability scores, and then I'm gonna go over the levels, okay? So for the background, we're gonna be going with custom background because we need to get the tough feat, and unfortunately there isn't a background that gives us the tough feat and +2 in dexterity and +1 in charisma. And that's, by the way, what we're gonna be doing for our stat bonuses. And with the custom background, we get 2 skill proficiencies and 1 tool proficiency. And normally I kind of tell you to do whatever you want for this, but I'm very specific about 2 of these. So we're gonna make sure we get Arcana proficiency and Athletics proficiency. And we're specifically gonna get the Herbalism kit. This is so we can craft potions of pugilism later on in the build. I'm not going to be including the potion of pugilism in any DPR calculations, but if you actually play this character at a table, it'll be a really good item to be able to craft. Here's the potion right here if you're curious. It's uncommon as well, so you can make it pretty easily, especially with the new Bastion rules if your DM uses those. I would say this character probably grew up in some sort of temple. It might even be a monastic temple, and they grew up learning the basics of magic and crafting potions. That's how they got their herbalism kit proficiency. And to be able to craft potions that aren't a potion of healing, you need to have arcana proficiency. So I'd imagine they grew up around a person who was sort of an herbalist expert that taught them enough about magic so that they could make these potions on their own. And training in a monastery type place, I could see them having a pretty tough physique doing all that training. And the species I'm going to be going with is actually the dwarf. The dwarf gives us a lot of things. First of all, the reason I went with the tough origin feat and the reason I went with dwarf is we need to compensate for our low constitution score, because this build has such a crazy stat spread that I needed to fulfill that tough and dwarven resilience together gives us 3 HP per level bonus, which will compensate a lot for our low constitution score. Dwarves also give us dark vision. They also get resistance to poison damage and advantage on saving throws to resist or end the poison condition. And the new stone cunning, they can activate tremor sense as a bonus action with a range of 60 feet, and it lasts for 10 minutes, and they can do it proficiency bonus times per day. This basically gives you blind sight, but only for things on the ground, which as a melee combatant, that's probably what you're going to be interested in fighting anyway. So we're going point by as always, and this is our insane stat spread. So we have a 14 strength, we have a 15 dexterity with the +2 in dexterity making it a 17. We have a 10 constitution, 8 intelligence, 8 wisdom, and then a 15 charisma with the +1 in charisma making our charisma a 16. As far as equipment, you're going to want to pick up that chainmail and that shield. We're not going to be using it for very long, but we definitely want it here at level 1. And you're going to have some Captain America vibes, at least for the first few levels. And let's go ahead and get into the level breakdown. So level 1, we get core paladin traits. I went with persuasion and intimidation, but these aren't specifically important for the build. That's just what I went with. That's a hard thing to say. And then level 1, we get lay on hands, which is nice. We got a healing ability. We also get spell casting at level 1, so we start with divine smite, and unfortunately at level 1 we don't have a fighting style and we can only use strength for our punches, so you're gonna get a +2 to hit with our 14 strength and you're gonna be doing 2 damage, but you can divine smite and do 2d8 extra damage, so it kind of evens out, but not the best level 1 experience. But quickly at level 2 we're getting fighting styles, and we're getting unarmed fighting. When you hit with an unarmed strike and deal damage, you can deal bludgeoning damage equal to 1d6 plus your strength modifier instead of the normal damage of an unarmed strike. If you aren't holding any weapons or a shield, when you make the attack roll, the d6 becomes a d8. At the start of each of your turns, you can deal 1d4 bludgeoning damage to one creature grappled by you. So this is a nice little fighting style. Here at level 2, the build has come together a little bit. Depending on if you want to be more defensive or offensive is when you can make your decision if you want to keep your shield or not. For DPR purposes, I'm going to be unequipping the shield when I do the DPR breakdown at level 6. And unfortunately, weapon masteries, we get them, but we can't use any of them. It is good to remember though, with unarmed strikes, you can grapple creatures and you can push them instead of doing your attack. So even though we don't have weapon masteries, we do have something to do with our unarmed strikes that's different. And as I just said with the unarmed fighting style, if we do grapple a creature, they'll take 1d4 bludgeoning damage at the start of each of their turns. So even though it's not a weapon mastery, it's a nice little bonus in damage if you want to grapple someone. And then at level 2, we get paladin smite. Basically, you get a free first level casting of divine smite, and divine smite is prepared for you. At level 1, I probably would have taken divine smite, but then you can now take it off of your list, and paladins are prepared casters, so they can change their spell list every morning, so it's not really a big deal for you. I'm gonna backtrack a bit. For spells, we definitely want to have Searing Smite and Bless, both very good spells, and whatever other spells you want to pick your favorite. And here at level 3 Paladin, we're going to be picking our subclass, and we're going with the Oath of Vengeance. The reason we're going with Oath of Vengeance is Oath of Devotion's Sacred Blade ability only works with weapons, so we couldn't even use our Channel Divinity with the Oath of Devotion. And Oath of Glory or Oath of Ancients could be cool choices, but the Oath of Vengeance will give us advantage on basically all of our attacks, and that'll be really important for the DPR in this build, so we're going to be going with Oath of Vengeance. Also, one thing I forgot to mention, Divine Favor, which is the spell that you get to add a d4 to all your attacks, unfortunately it specifically says weapon attacks, so we cannot use Divine Favor, which I was kind of bummed about when I made this build. I feel like depending on your DM though, your DM might be willing to give you an extra d4 in your unarmed strikes, so that could be an option for you if your DM is willing. Then here at level 4, we're taking our first feat and we're going with Charger. I feel like I take this feat on so many builds, but this build really needed it. First of all, it gives us a +1 to our dexterity, which we need, and then when you take the dash action, you can add +10 to your speed, which we probably won't be doing, but good to have as an option. But this is why we got it. If you move at least 10 feet in a straight line towards the target immediately before hitting it with a melee attack roll, doesn't say weapon, as part of the attack action, choose one of the following effects. You can gain a 1d8 bonus to the attack's damage roll, or push the target up to 10 feet away if it is no more than one size larger than you. You can use this benefit only once per turn on each of your turns. So yeah, we got a little damage boost. We got a way to potentially control the battlefield a bit more with our unarmed strikes. So there we go. And level 5, we get extra attack and Faithful Steed. I didn't really think about using Faithful Steed in this build, but technically there's nothing stopping you from riding a horse around and punching people in the face while on your horse. It wouldn't work very well in real life, but as far as I know, there isn't any rules that say you can't punch people while on a horse. So I guess you have really long arms. I don't know. Anyway though, here level 6, we're going with our first level in Bard. As far as spells, pick your favorite. I would definitely pick up the Blade Ward cantrip. Being in the front lines and not necessarily having a spell that you need to concentrate on, Blade Ward could be a nice little boost to your survivability, adding a d4 to your armor class every time someone hits you. And then Paladins don't get access to healing words, so having a nice bonus action healing is great. And Longstrider will be great to cast on yourself, so you get a little more movement and you feel a little bit more like a monk, you know? Every other spell, pick your favorite. Also, with this Bard level, I forgot to mention that you get proficiency in a musical instrument, and I think the perfect pick for this character is going to be the bagpipes. And we're gonna go over the level 6 damage per round. So I use this website called dprcalc.com, and down in the video description I will have each level tier's information, and you can use this website and you can kind of mess with the builds for each level and see what you can do. I did 3 different scenarios to see which one did the most damage. Scenario 1 is concentrating on the Bless spell and then using Divine Smite every turn after that. The second one is using Searing Smite in the first round and then using Divine Smite every other round. The Searing Smite in this scenario doesn't last the full 4 rounds of combat. It only lasts for 3 rounds after the initial casting of it. So basically 2 rounds where I'm getting the Searing Smite damage and the Divine Smite damage. And then I have a third scenario where I don't concentrate on any spells and I just Divine Smite every turn. And remember, I have Valve Enmity. I can, with my attack action, get advantage on my attack rolls against the creature I'm attacking. It no longer requires a bonus action like the 2014 version. And then if I run at least 10 feet, then I get to add a d8 of damage. And then this is over a 4-round combat. So if I use round 1 to cast Bless, I do no damage in round 1, then I do 29.1 in round 2, and in round 3, and in round 4. That's because I have 3 level 2 spell slots, so all my Divine Smites are going to be the same damage. And with Bless, that is 21.9 DPR average. It's actually the lowest damage out of the 3, but also 2 of my allies get a d4 added to their attack rolls, so that's something to consider. With the Searing Smite DPR, it's you cast Searing Smite with your first attack, and then round 2, if they fail the save, you get the Searing Smite damage, and then you get to use your Divine Smite on the same round. And then if they fail again, then you get to use Divine Smite again, and then let's say they succeed on the final round, then it's just going to be a normal Divine Smite round. And the DPR using that method is 28 DPR. And then if you just smite every round, you use your 3 second level spells for the first 3 rounds, and the 4th round you use a first level spell, Divine Smite, you're looking at 25 DPR. So not super high for our level 6 DPR, but I didn't really expect much anyway. All right, and then we go into Bard, and level 2 Bard, we get to add expertise. I went ahead and did expertise in Arcana and Athletics, but you can do whatever you want. And you get this great feature, Jack of all trades. Basically, you get half proficiency in all skills, which is real nice. And then at level 3, we get the Bard subclass, the College of Dance. Bards of the College of Dance know that the words of creation can't be contained within speech or song. The words are uttered by the movements of celestial bodies and flow through the motions of the smallest creatures. These bards practice a way of being in harmony with the whirling cosmos that emphasizes agility, speed, and grace. I actually forgot to read the Paladin subclass Oath of Vengeance, so I'll read that real quick. The Oath of Vengeance is a solemn commitment to punish those who have committed grievously evil acts. A fun narrative for this character is maybe their mentor figure that taught them how to brew potions got killed or something bad happened to them, and then this character decided to make an oath of vengeance to avenge their fallen mentor. And then eventually living their life out in the world, they became a bit more interested in using their body to harness the magic of creation itself, because they've already been using their body to have divine magic flow through them. They might as well learn how to dance as well. This is where the build starts coming together. So we got dazzling footwork. While you aren't wearing armor or wielding a shield, you gain the following benefits. Dance virtuoso. I don't know how to pronounce that, I'm sorry. You have advantage on any charisma performance check you make that involves you dancing. Then you get unarmored defense. Your base armor class equals 10 plus your dexterity and charisma modifiers. So we will no longer be using the chainmail that we had on, so we'll take that off. We get agile strikes. When you expend a use of your bardic inspiration as part of an action, bonus action, or reaction, you can make one unarmed strike as part of that action, bonus action, or reaction. And then bardic damage. You can use your dexterity instead of strength for the attack rolls of your unarmed strikes. When you deal damage with an unarmed strike, you can deal bludgeoning damage equal to the roll of your bardic inspiration die plus your dexterity modifier instead of the strike's normal damage. This roll doesn't expend the die. So basically, we can now make our attacks with our dexterity, and that's good because our dexterity is an 18 now, so we'll get a big boost in our to hit. Not only that though, we can use our bardic inspiration die for our unarmed strikes now. We're not going to use our bardic inspiration die yet because right now the bardic inspiration die is only a d6, so we're still going to be using the unarmed strike 1d8 dice until our bardic inspiration becomes higher, and it will. Eventually we'll be getting a d10 to our unarmed strikes, which is really nice. And if we use a bonus action to give someone a bardic inspiration, we can then do an unarmed strike, which we won't be doing very often because if we do that, we won't be able to divine smite because we'd be using our bonus action. But later we're going to get a reaction use to be able to use our bardic inspiration die, and then we can, as a reaction, do an unarmed strike. So it all works out in the end. And then at level 4 Bard, we get another ability score improvement or feat. We're going to go for ability score improvement, and we're going to get our dexterity to a 20. At level 5, we get font of inspiration. You now regain all your expended uses of bardic inspiration when you finish a short or long rest. In addition, you can expend a spell slot, no action required, to regain one expended use of your bardic inspiration. That's real nice. And at level 6 Bard, we get inspiring movement. When an enemy you can see ends its turn within 5 feet of you, you can take a reaction and expend one use of your bardic inspiration to move up to half your speed. Then one ally of your choice within 30 feet of you can also move up to half their speed using their reaction. None of this features movement provokes opportunity attacks. So this is a great ability, and it finally gives us the ability to use agile strikes properly. And notice it specifically says when an enemy you can see ends its turn within 5 feet of you. It doesn't have to move within 5 feet of you that turn. It just had to have ended its turn next to you. And you're in melee anyways. So what you can do is you can just make sure you're close to an enemy when you're in your turn. And unless they're afraid of you or something, most likely they're going to be right next to you when they end their turn. And then as a reaction, you can use inspiring movement. You can punch them in the face and then run away. And one of your friends can run away too. And then on your turn, you can just run right back to them with the charger feat and get that extra d8. Great combo. And then we also have tandem footwork. When you roll initiative, you can expend 1 use of your Bardic Inspiration if you don't have the incapacitated condition. When you do so, roll your Bardic Inspiration die. You and each ally within 30 feet of you who can see or hear you gains a bonus to its initiative equal to your number rolled. So yeah, you can give a Bardic Inspiration die in advantage bonus to you and your allies. This doesn't trigger your Agile Strikes because this doesn't require any action to use this. This just happens when you roll initiative. So keep that in mind. This is really nice, especially when you really need to make sure you guys go first. And with that, let's do the level 11 DPR. So this level tier, I only had 2 different DPR calculations. One is no concentration on any spell and just divine smiting every turn. And one is using searing smite. And with this one, I did the math for how much damage it would do depending on how long the searing smite stays on the enemy. And if you look here, you're probably wondering, why do I have 3 attacks? And that's because I'm going to be using every single one of my Bardic Inspirations to get that reaction attack every turn until I run out of Bardic Inspiration, that is. And seeing that our charisma is 16 here, we have 3 uses of Bardic Inspiration per short rest. So if you don't cast any concentration spells and you just divine smite every turn with those 3 attacks, one being a reaction attack, with the charger feat, your Valve Enmity, so you're getting advantage on all these attacks, we're looking at 51.5 DPR. But what I found out is at this level tier, you definitely want to be casting Searing Smite in the first round. So if you cast Searing Smite in the first round of combat at the highest level, and they fail the saving throw once, and then succeed the next round, the DPR goes up from 51.5 to 53.5, and then if it lasts for 3 rounds instead of the 2 rounds I just explained, it goes up to 57.7, and if it lasts all 4 rounds, you're looking at 62 DPR, which is pretty respectable. Also, at this level tier, most creatures still have a pretty low con save, depending on what you're fighting. And if you're curious what this is the round of combat where you have Searing Smite and Divine Smite happening at the same time. So you'll have rounds that could get you close to 70 damage, which is pretty cool. Okay, this is where the build kind of goes off in a different direction for a little bit, and then it comes right back, okay? If you're making this build yourself, and at level 11, you just want to focus on doing more damage, and you don't care about anything else, I would skip the next 2 levels that I'm about to do and go straight into Bard. But what I'm going to do here at level 12 is I'm actually going to be going into Warlock for 2 levels. Before I go into Warlock though, I'm going to take 1 more level into Paladin so I can get the Aura of Protection. We get to add our Charisma modifier to all of our saving throws and any ally within 10 feet of us as well. So this is real good and very important to have. You might want to take it sooner depending on how things shake out with your group. But then for level 13, I'm going to be going into Warlock. We're going to pick up the Eldritch Mind Invocation and pick up Armor of Agathis, and then whatever other spells you want to pick up. We get a couple more first level spell slots, which is nice. And then at level 14, we're going to be going for Warlock 2, and then we get 2 more Eldritch Invocations, and this is what we were after. So we're securing our concentration already with Eldritch Mind, and then we're going to be taking the lessons of the first one's invocation twice. This gives us 2 origin feats. I decided to take the luck feat just because it's a really good feat, and we're going to be using it defensively. The thing is, we already have advantage on all of our attack rolls, so we most likely won't ever need to use our luck points for attack rolls, but we can use it to get advantage on saving throws, and we can also use it to make enemies roll disadvantage when they're attacking us, which protects our concentration yet again. And remember, using the luck feat doesn't require any actions. You can just do it, so that's real nice. And then I went ahead and decided to pick up Tavern Brawler. This is so that we can take the damage rerolls part of it and the push part. So now whenever we roll a damage die for our unarmed strikes, we can re-roll the die if it rolls a 1, and we must use the new roll. So we can up our damage a bit with that. And then the push ability, when you hit a creature with an unarmed strike as part of the attack action on your turn, you can deal damage to the target and also push it 5 feet away from you. So yeah, we made our concentration and our defensive abilities more secure, and we add added more control options and damage to our unarmed strikes. So this was a weird but good use of 2 levels. And then we also got access to Armor of Agathis, which we will be using in the build. So yeah, really good 2-level dip here. And then for the rest of the build, we're just going to be going straight into Bard. Level 7 Bard, we get Counter Charm. Basically, if one of our allies becomes charmed or frightened, we can use our reaction and they can reroll the save at advantage. Real nice. This also has no limit to how many times it can be done. You can just do it forever. And then at level 8 Bard, we're just gonna get our charisma to 18. So this gives us more bardic inspiration uses. This ups our saving throw DC, and this ups our aura protection. So real nice bonuses here. And then level 9 Bard, we get 2 more expertise. I went ahead and did performance and persuasion, but you can do whatever you want. This DPR scenario is way easier to explain because I did the Searing Smite DPR, and it is potentially higher DPR, but honestly, going straight no concentration divine smiting at your highest level spell slots, which are higher than before, is probably your best bet here at this level tier. Unfortunately, because we focus more on defensive options, we don't actually have that big of a damage bump here, and no concentration spell, just straight divine smiting, we have 59 DPR, and if you use Searing Smite and it only lasts 2 rounds, it actually ends up being 59.2 DPR, and I feel like that's the most realistic situation for it to only last 2 rounds. And so if that's the case, then it's probably not worth using. But let's say it happens to last 3 rounds or 4 rounds. 3 rounds, it would be 63.4 DPR, and 4 rounds would be 67.5 DPR. So pretty good if that happens. Let's say you know your group isn't making it to level 20, and maybe you're going to be making it to level 17, and you want to do big damage. I would skip those Warlock levels and just go straight into Bard, and you'll see why here when I break down level 18, 19, and 20, where things get real crazy and the damage goes way up. So at level 10 Bard, we get the new best Bard feature, Magical Secrets. We now have access to the full Wizard, Druid, and Cleric spell lists. This does so much for the character that I could talk about it forever. So I'm not going to do that, and I'm going to mention the spells that you should think about using for this build. And don't worry, I have many different DPR calculations for the use of all the different spells. These are the main ones you should consider though, is Spirit Guardians, Conjure Minor Elementals, the newly nerfed Conjure Minor Elementals, by the way, which I am totally fine with using now that it's a bit more balanced, and Conjure Woodland Beings. Holy Weapon's an option for thematics, but it's definitely not as good as Conjure Minor Elementals. And then at level 20, level 12 Bard, we get our final feat, and it's an epic boon feat, and we're going for the Boon of Fortitude. You can go with whatever you want. I just wanted this character to finally get the HP it deserves as a melee focused character. Hit point maximum goes up by 40, and whenever you regain hit points, you gain additional hit points equal to your Constitution modifier, which ours is 0, but that ability isn't that great anyway, so whatever. Also, all of our scores are even right now, so the +1 from the boon isn't really that great of a benefit right now. If you really don't want to use the boon, it might even be better for you to just get a +2 in charisma to get your charisma and dex both at 20, but that's for you to decide. This is just what I went with for this. And you're probably seeing that number and you're thinking, what the heck? Okay, I'll explain. So first of all, I didn't calculate Armor of Agathis in the last DPR situation. I probably could have, but I decided not to. But for this level 20 DPR, we have so many spell slots, we're going to calculate Armor of Agathis. For the sake of convenience, I'm going to assume that this character already knew combat was going to happen, and they cast Armor of Agathis on themselves before combat started. And they're casting it at 5th level for 25 temporary hit points. And I'm going to assume for DPR calculations that they get hit once and it deals 25 damage once. It could very much do more damage, but just to make things simple, we're going to say they get hit once and the attack that hits them does more than 25 damage. So the Armor of Agathis hit points all go away with that first hit. So I have 3 different scenarios. No concentration spell, just divine smiting. Pretty boring. Definitely not the best option, especially with the crazy amount of spell lists we have access to right now. But if you do that with your 3 attacks plus Armor of Agathis up, you on average do 64 DPR. Not very great. Now, if in round round 1, you use your full action to cast Conjure Minor Elementals. Remember, you can still do your reaction attack this round, as long as a creature ends their turn within 5 feet of you. So we're gonna assume you do your reaction attack this turn, plus you do the Armor of Agathis damage. In round 2, 3, and 4, you have Conjure Minor Elementals up. You're dealing that big damage. You're dealing 6d8 damage per hit for your 3 attacks, and then you're Divine Smiting with a 7th level, a 6th level, and a 5th level slot for each round going down. And with that, on average, you're doing 100.1 DPR, with round 2 being the highest damage at 119.8 DPR. So yeah, things are getting crazy for your single target damage. But let's say you're in a situation where there is at least 3 targets that you can, especially with all your movement abilities, you can probably hit at least 3 of them per round. And we're going to be choosing Conjure Woodland Beings for this instead of Spirit Guardians. The main reason why is Conjure Woodland Beings does a little bit more damage, and it has a more reliable damage type being force damage. Not that radiant damage isn't a very reliable damage type. So round 1, you cast Conjure Woodland Beings, you hit 3 targets with it, and you do 1 reaction attack plus the Armor of Agathis damage. Round 2, 3, and 4, you're doing the same thing you did in the past scenario. You're Divine Smiting at level 7, 6, and 5 with Conjure Woodland Beings up at 8th level, and doing 3 attacks with one of those attacks being your reaction attack, and you're looking at 132 DPR on average. So yeah, this build is pretty messy and it's a bit hard to get put together, but if you're doing a level 21 shot, or if you're going to be in a campaign that gets to level 20, it becomes really good here at level 20. You have 210 HP. This is without any spells like Aid or anything cast on you. You have a +4 con, advantage on saving throws to maintain concentration. You have all of these other saving throw proficiencies. These are the spells you have access to. Basically every spell in the game, and you're a freaking cool unarmed paladin dwarf combatant. When you're walking around, you just look like a guy. You got just regular clothes on and a spell focus, and you're one of the most versatile characters that I've made in a while. Pretty epic. Ooh, that was very fun to make. I really liked working on this build. I'm very tired now though. I'm gonna go take a nap. But as I go take my nap, you should check out this video where I reveal to you my homebrew paladin subclass known as the Oath of Radiance. Honestly, the Oath of Radiance subclass would be really fun to play with this build. So check it out right there, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace out.